CNN anchor and correspondent Jake Tapper aims to uncover the truth with his hard-nosed interviews. But now in his new book, Tapper turns his attention from learning the truth to writing fiction. His novel is called The Hellfire Club. It's a political thriller set in the 1950s Washington when the Red Scare and McCarthyism ruled the city. Jake Tapper joins us now at the table. Hey, Jake Tapper, it's so good you're here on Breaking News Day, too.
Amazing, and the three of my favorite people.
Oh, we're so glad to have you.
Great.
It's great to have you,
Jake.
Jake.
Said to Ellen yesterday.
Jake goes,
He has many.
You're my favorite people right now.
He has many favorite people.
Jake
This
and
is
Brad.
not true. I only met Ellen that moment.
Yes.
I've known you guys for
There is a
years.
difference.
You are all lovely people in real life, as the viewers will be happy to learn.
Despite the way we're treating you now.
We're going to get to your book in just a second, but really want to talk to you first about Dr. Ronny Jackson, because you come in to do makeup, and he's in. You come out of makeup, and he's out.
That's the Trump era, right? You take
Yeah.
a commercial break and you look at your phone. Oh my God, 15 more big stories have just broken.
What's your reaction to it?
It was unsustainable. I mean, the writing was on the wall as soon as these stories first started coming out. You saw that they were first put out there really by Republicans on the Hill, Senate Republicans who had been trying to communicate with the White House, hey, we've got concerns. The White House, according to the Senate, was unresponsive, and here are the concerns. It is odd, though, he calls the stories false and fabricated, and yet he withdraws. I mean, if I had stories about me that were false and fabricated, I would stay and fight.
Yeah,
You would ask the operation of a full White House to back you and prove that they're, and put character witnesses up, etc. You would put a whole fight behind it.
And this is the problem with this White House, unfortunately for Dr. Jackson, is that they didn't have the mechanism there because they didn't do the vetting. They didn't have the process in place. I mean, people can rail against the establishment all they want, and sometimes for good reason, but sometimes the establishment knows what it's doing, and in this case, vetting and having answers to questions ready is important.
I always say when the word embattled is before your name, it's not long before that you are
Beleaguered,
toast.
embattled, and disgruntled.
That's right.
Never, those are adjectives you don't want anywhere near you.
And this is a way in which the disruptive nature of the internal process in the White House hurts their own goal, which was to get this guy in a job.
Right. I mean, we've all talked about this before privately and publicly, there's the disruption of the Trump administration that's good, that's positive, rethinking the way we send troops to battle, rethinking the way we go negotiate trade on agreements. And then there's a disruptive part that hurts everything he wants to achieve, such as basic competence, not having in place the vetting and the information.
Jake, and you've written about veterans in some of your previous books. You've written 3 nonfiction books. This is your first fiction book.
My first novel, yes.
First novel. And it does have some nonfiction elements in it, according to historical figures. Why did you want to do this?
First of all, just for fun.
Yeah.
I kept reading and learning about historical things that had taken place in Washington that I thought were just amazing and people didn't know about at the time, know about since, and I thought it'd be fun to write. Also, in a way, sometimes you can write with greater clarity about your feelings about things as opposed to the facts that you focus on when you write nonfiction. When you write fiction, there are things about Washington that I've experienced and wanted to write about, including the swampy nature of it, the compromises people come to town and are forced to make. And also, when writing about Joe McCarthy, just the indecency and lies that he put forward that people didn't take a stand about.
One of the great things you do in this book is you show the drip of the way people who come with a set of values about personal behavior, but also about scientific research and things, just slowly start to move.
That's how it works, right? We've all seen this. People who go to Washington, they're good people. They want to achieve.
Intentions.
They want to achieve good things, like the main character in the book, Charlie Martyr. He comes to town. He wants to protect veterans. He's a veteran of World War II, and then little by little, he's asked to make compromises. And ultimately, next thing he knows, he's in way over his head. And I see that happen all the time in Washington. People, Democrats, Republicans, they come to town, they want to do good, and they're forced to make compromises, and they lose themselves.
Your book is also, there's a list of sources in the back.
Yes.
One of them is, I thought, something that, of course...
Is that yours?
That's my copy. I thought, oh, well, only I had it, but of course you do.
I don't
tell
have the
people
paperback.
what
I have
this...
the hardback.
Oh, you do? Well, I don't have one to one-up you. And you've also written a novel. But anyway, this is a great book, Washington Confidential, which is about this period.
Yes.
Why did you pick the time period? And you can riff on this book if you want and what it is.
Washington Confidential by Jack Lay and Lee Mortimer is one of the sleaziest, grossest books. And it's about Washington, D.C. in, I think, 1951 is when it came out. And it's just a muckraking book. It got a bad review in the Washington Post at the time from a young Cub reporter named Ben Bradley, who thought that it was shamefully poorly researched. The era is such a fascinating one, as I don't need to tell you guys because you're all history buffs. But the 1950s, it doesn't get a lot of attention because it's sandwiched right between World War II and the 60s. But it's this time that we idealize in American popular culture as sweet and serene and benign, but truly it's a time of menace. Like everything on the surface might seem great if you're white, but because certainly it was right before Brown versus the Board of Education, things were not great for women, et cetera. But on the surface, it's like Pleasantville. But underneath, there's McCarthyism, there's the Red Scare, communists are literally infiltrating our government. It is a horrific time, and people are terrified.
Jake, you started writing this book about 3 or 4 years ago. Could you have possibly known there'd be so many parallels with what's happening in 2018 as you're writing about 1954? I think that's so interesting. That it's so dead on.
Yeah, well,
respects.
I started it during the Obama years. And the swamp was resonant. The idea that the Washington, D.C. in my novel and where we are today, it's very swampy. But no, the stuff about Joe McCarthy's a character in the book, and the stuff about how much he smears and lies and just completely takes over the political discourse, and people in Washington have no idea how to handle it. They try to straddle the worlds of, is this okay, can I let this happen? There are very few people in the media or Democrats or Republicans who stand up against it. That's obviously resonant today. And no, I couldn't have predicted it. They say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I heard a lot of rhyming when doing research on this book.
But Jake, talk about people that you've been described as a merciless slayer of alternative facts. That they said, look at Jake Tapper's face, you can tell exactly what he's thinking.
Well, you guys know me. That's just my face. I'm not that's just how it is. That's the expressions from time to time on the Straight Talk Express or our time on Air Force One.
Yeah. And it's got you on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that's interesting.
When you're writing a novel, are you constantly collecting from the daily work that you do, character behavior, the movements of people's hands, or was this something that was not a part of your day-to-day as you were writing it?
A little bit of both. Honestly, writing the novel was a relief from the day-to-day because I didn't have to strictly adhere to facts as I do during the day-to-day work, as you guys do. But also, you could see things going on in 2018 or 2017, 16 when I was writing the book and say, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that would work in 1954. So there are purposeful echoes of today that I project backwards.
No, Charlie Martyr has an acute sense of smell, and I'm told so do you.
I do. That's the one thing about Charlie.
What do we smell like, Jake?
You guys
careful.
Smell like hope and integrity.
Yes.
There you go. I like that odor. I like that.
On that note. Jake, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
so great to see you.
It's so great to see you guys.
The Hellfire Club is on sale now.